Shalom, family. This is Deacon Aaron from the Gathering of Christ Church, New Jersey branch. Here with you with another video. In this video, we're going to focus on artificial intelligence and its impact on the current and future labor markets as it pertains to Israelites. All right. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, you stumble across this video and you may not know that you are an Israelite. Well, we've taken care of that for you here. And if you want to know more about who the Israelites are, you can go to thegatheringofchristchurch.org and you can scroll down here and we have a tab that says the 12 tribes. When you hit this tab, it will bring you to this page here. Now, who are the 12 tribes of Israel? The elders go into an excellent breakdown on who the current tribes of Israel are, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. And not to get into this too deeply, but the so-called native Indian tribes, this would be Ephraim, right? Your Puerto Ricans, or Simeon, your Dominicans, Issachar, which are your Mexicans, Manasseh, which are your Cubans, Gad, which are your native Indians, right? Or Native Americans, I should say. That's just a brief example of who they are. And then the elders, of course, go into the breakdown information that substantiates those claims, all right? And then also the so-called Negro tribes. This would be Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. Judah represents your African Americans. Benjamin represents your Caribbean tribes, the Jamaicans, and so on and so forth. And then Levi are your Haitians. All right. Now, of course, this is the tribes that are identified in the Western Hemisphere, but the Israelites, the lost tribes, were scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. All right. So we're going to get into some scripture before we begin. Now, I wanted to go into the scripture here, Luke chapter 16, verse 1 through 8. And I think it's very relevant to the current time that we're in now, of course, and then also the mindset that we have to have going into this artificial intelligence revolution, right? And I call it a revolution because it's similar to the Industrial Revolution and so on and so forth, right? And this is just another extension of technology changing the landscape and how we live and its impact on society. So let's begin. Luke chapter 16, I'll start at verse 1. And he said unto his disciples, there was a certain rich man which had a steward, and the same was accused unto him that he had wasted his goods. And he called him and said unto him, how is it that I hear this of thee? He's speaking to the steward. Give an account of thy stewardship, for thou mayest be no longer a steward. So the master is saying here, listen, if this is true, you're going to lose your job. I am going to fire you, right? Verse 3. Then the steward said unto himself, within himself, what shall I do? For my Lord taketh away from me the stewardship. I cannot dig. To beg, I am ashamed. So perhaps this steward was over, an elderly man maybe, but he stated here that he cannot dig, right? So maybe he has some physical limitations to doing any hard, labor. And, he seemed like he was comfortable where he was at, right? And to be a beggar, he was ashamed to do that, right? Verse 4, I am resolved what to do. When I am put out of the stewardship, they may receive me into their houses. So he is saying like, okay, if I'm fired from this job, I got to hope that there are others who are going to take me into their houses, right? Because he cannot dig, right? And he's too proud to beg, right? Verse 5. So he called every one of his Lord's debtors unto him and said unto the first, How much owest thou unto my lord? And he said, 100 measures of oil. And he said unto him, Take thy bill and sit down quickly and write 50. So here we see that the steward reduced the debt, right? He owed technically 100, right, measures of oil. He reduced it to 50, right? This is key. Verse 7. Then said he to another, How much owest thou? And he said, 100 measures of wheat. And he said unto him, Take thy bill and write fourscore. So he wrote it down to 40, right? Fourscore, right? And verse 8, And the Lord commended the unjust steward because he had done wisely. For the children of this world are in their generation wiser than the children of light, right? So this steward was being commended for the fact that he operated wisely in this situation of distress, right? And when you go into that word wisely, it means to be prudent. Also, it means, for example, mindful of one's interest, right? So this steward was very prudent. He was very mindful of his situation and his interests, right? He got put out of a job and he needed to be brought into habitations so he can survive, right? And I'm going to read this here. This is out of the Cultural Background Study Bible, New King James Version, and they give a very interesting take on the cultural backdrop of this situation. And it reads, Landowners sometimes forgave or reduced debts in times of famine or other crisis. Those forgiven normally praised the creditor as benevolent in return. So, right, creditors would get praise and even more honor because they reduced debts in times of stress, right? The landowner now recognizes his manager's shrewdness. If the owner protests, the manager acted on his own. The debtors will be angry with the owner and generous towards the manager. So the steward understood this, right? He said, in his mind, if the people who were the debtors and were, if the owner were to pull back and reverse what the unjust steward had did, then those who debts he reduced would be angry. They would be upset, right? Which could cause more issues, right? For the sake of his honor, the owner is not likely to try to exact more from the debtors than what his manager has promised. As far as the account books, the apparent lower income will now be attributed to generosity rather than to the manager's mismanagement, honoring the owner, right? In this sense, right? So now the owner can't get mad, right? And if he does, then they will act benevolent towards to the steward to bring him into habitations, right? So the steward hedged his bets, right? So I bring this up because in this time, we're going to have to be very, very wise in how we move, right? And I'll go into the Strong's definition for wise as well. I think it adds a little bit more. It says thoughtful, sagacious, or discreet. This is G5429, implying a cautious character, while denotes practical skill or acumen, right? So when we consider, and we're going to go into this, right, the impact that artificial intelligence will have on our communities, particularly Israelite communities, it's going to have a tremendous impact. And we're going to have to understand how to pivot in this times and prepare for that pivot. And we need to start preparing now because things are rapidly changing. And we're going to talk about the pace of those things as we get a little bit further into the presentation. So we're going to check out a video now by Elon Musk, right? Now, Elon Musk currently has been appointed the lead of the Department of Government Efficiency. Okay, and he is strategically placed in position to, go in. We're going to go into what he's going to bring forth. So let's go ahead and get into that video now.
What would your kind of observation be on AI and the impact on labor markets and people's jobs, and how they should feel about that as they think about this?
Well, I think we are seeing the most disruptive force in history here. Where we have for the first time, we will have for the first time something that is smarter than the smartest human. And that, it's hard to say exactly what that moment is, but there will come a point where no job is needed. You can have a job if you want to have a job for sort of personal satisfaction, but the AI will be able to do everything.
So he's painting a picture like this is all going to be rosy and great. Listen, AI is going to be no need for anyone to have a job because AI is going to be able to do everything. So then what are we going to do? Right. Now he's painting it as if, okay, if you want one, of a hobby or something, you can do it, but won't really be needed. Right. But we know that's not going to be the case. Right. And this is all going to be in the control in the hands of a very few. So let's keep going.
So I don't know if that makes people comfortable or uncomfortable. That's why I say if you wish for a magic genie, that gives you any wishes you want, and there's no.
We know genie or jinn, right? These are demons, right? Continue.
Limit. You don't have those three wish limit nonsense. You just have as many wishes as you want. It's both good and bad. One of the challenges in the future will be how do we find meaning in life if you have a magic genie that can do everything you want. I do think we.
So I'll stop it right there. But we see here that the whole point, the future, as this man is a very instrumental part of, right, in terms of the part he's going to play in bringing forth the mark of the beast, right, will be there's going to be no jobs. Okay. And so that's very, very key. So here we have identified the end game, right? And the elders have went in and spoken about this ad nauseum. So we're going to go into a little bit more detail on what jobs are initially going to be impacted and how we can, potentially stay afloat. All right. So I want to take a look at this other video here. This is from Free Press, and this is from a venture capitalist. And he has some very, very interesting things to say. So let's check it out.
We had meetings in D.C. in May where we talked to them about this, and the meetings were absolutely horrifying, and we came out basically deciding we had to endorse Trump.
What did you hear in those meetings?
AI is a technology basically that the government is going to completely control. This is not going to be a startup thing. They actually said flat out to us, don't do AI startups. Like don't fund AI startups. It's not something that we're going to allow to happen. They're not going to be allowed to exist. There's no point. They basically said AI is going to be a game of 2 or 3 big companies working closely with the government, and we're going to basically wrap them in I'm paraphrasing, but we're going to basically wrap them in a government cocoon. We're going to protect them from competition. We're going to control them, and we're going to dictate what they do. And then I said, I don't understand how you're going to lock this down so much, because like the math for, AI is like out there and it's being taught everywhere. And, they literally said, during the Cold War, we classified entire areas of physics and took them out of the research community, and like entire branches of physics basically went dark and didn't proceed. And that
So what they're planning to do with artificial intelligence, they've already done in the past, right? And we're seeing here, this is going to be controlled mainly by government, right? By 2 or 3, he said, big companies, right? And we can probably guess with who those companies are, right? So a lot of us, or a lot of people, I should say, who are studying these things, right? Now they're going to limit it to the point where you're going to have to work for these 3 companies that are going to be joined at the hip with the government, right, to bring forth this mark of the beast, right? Control grid. All right.
If we decide we need to, we're going to do the same thing to the math underneath AI.
Wow.
And I said, I've just learned 2 very important things. because I wasn't aware of the former, and I wasn't aware that you were, even conceiving of doing it to the latter.
Right. So we see here that this is not a game. Okay, brothers and sisters. Um, the government will be working hand in hand with these tech companies, and they will be instrumental in guiding this thing forward. Right now, the whole point is, well, what's the impact on us? Right? Present tense, future tense, what is that impact, right? So we're going to go into some articles I have here, and we got a few more videos, and we're going to dive into, what's happening now and what we can expect in the near term. And here's a article called "What is Artificial Intelligence?" Short AI, right? And I'm not going to touch on this too much, but I thought what was interesting here was the growth of AI over the years, right? AI started in the 1950s, right? So this is actually not new, right? And then it went into machine learning. That was like another phase of it. Deep learning in the 2010s. And then this is where we are now, right? Generative AI, right? Now, you can probably guess what the next iteration of it will be, and it will probably be sentient AI, right? Where AI is practically a person, right? Because there's already discussions about that already. But we're not going to talk about that here. All right, so let's get into this article here. I thought it was very interesting. If you go to a lot of these think tanks, like this is Stanford University, right? And they have a whole, wing of their university focused on studying this, right? And I found this article to be very interesting. Some things I'm going to point out, not all of it. Our article is called "The Turing Trap: The Promise and Peril of Human-like Artificial Intelligence," right? Human-like. And we'll kind of jump ahead here. It's just some things I want to point out. So let's see. The disruptive effects of AI depend on whether it is primarily used to augment human labor or automate and replace it. So that's what they're trying to sell now. Like, listen, right? AI is going to be used to augment our behavior, right? It's going to be able to assist you. And we can see some early signs of that, right? Even though there's some effects from that. Personally, I believe that it's making the population dumber. All right. But this is how it's being rolled out now, right? When AI augments human capabilities, enabling people to do things they never could before, then humans and machines are complements. Complementary implies that people remain indispensable for value creation and retain bargaining power in their labor markets and political decision making, right? So essentially, if AI is just to complement our existence, right, then we remain in control. Okay. And then it reads, in contrast, when AI replicates and automates existing human capabilities, right, which we know is currently happening, machines become better substitutes for human labor and workers lose economic and political bargaining power, right? In essence, when they are able to automate the things that we can do that we get paid for now, what's going to happen? We are going to be replaced, right? Now, it makes economic sense to those in control of those decisions because, AI will be more likely cheaper. AI won't call out of work. Can work 24/7. It doesn't need rest, right? You don't have to pay AI, right? This is how decision makers are going to look at this, right? I'll continue here. Entrepreneurs and executives who have access to machines with capabilities that replicate those of human for a given task can and often will replace humans in those tasks, right? So we know that's essentially going to happen, right? A fully automated economy could, in principle, be structured to redistribute the benefits from production widely, even to those who are no longer strictly necessary for value creation. So now we're talking about, with the oncoming of AI, it could be a potential to redistribute wealth, right? We know that's not going to be the goal. However, the beneficiaries would be in a weak bargaining position to prevent a change in the distribution that left them with little or nothing, right? So if everything has been stripped from you, your ability to earn a living, and now you become what they would probably call a useless eater, right? What power do we have to leverage in order to service our needs, right? Little to none. This opens the door to increased concentration of wealth and power, right? So it's all going to go into the hands of a few, right? And we know Amalek sits at the top of this, of course, and ultimately the beast that will reign with Satan, right? That we find in Revelations. All right. On the one hand, it is a path to unprecedented wealth, increased leisure, robust intelligence, and even a better understanding of ourselves. So this is what they're selling AI to do, right? On the other hand, if human-like artificial intelligence leads machines to automate rather than augment human labor, it creates the risk of concentrating wealth and power. And with that concentration comes the peril of being trapped in an equilibrium where those without power have no way to improve their outcomes, a situation I call the Turing trap. So I thought that was very eloquently put, that essentially it's going to create two classes of people: those who are in control and those who have no control. There will be a slave class and a master class. Essentially, that's what we have today, but it will be more pronounced in this time when AI comes to its full power. Okay? All right, so this is another article by McKinsey. This is a consulting firm, and it's called The State of AI in Early 2024. Generative AI adoption spikes and starts to generate value, right? And some interesting things I want to point out in this article here. The interest in generative AI also brightened the spotlight on a broader set of AI capabilities. For the past 6 years, AI adoption by respondents' organizations has hovered at about 50%. This year, the survey finds that adoption has jumped to 72%. So now 72% of companies now are adopting AI. That's a 22% jump, right? And the interest is truly global in scope. So it's not just in the United States or in America. It's everywhere, right? Our 2023 survey found that AI adoption did not reach 66% in any region. However, this year, more than 2/3 of respondents in nearly every region say their organizations are utilizing artificial intelligence. So we see that now these companies that we work for, right, they are adopting artificial intelligence rapidly, right? It is coming. It is here, right? And these decision makers are sitting back and they're looking to find ways eventually to replace skilled workers, right? And this is just some interesting charts I see here. AI adoption worldwide has increased dramatically, what we read, right? So we see here, this was the adoption rate of pre-generation generative AI artificial intelligence, right? But here we see when the use of generative AI came in 2023, or came in, right? Starting in 2023, this thing has jumped up, right? So that is going to be your Chat GPT. That's going to be your Copilot. You know, all these tools that now are being rolled out in our jobs. they are being adopted rapidly, right? And to some extent, they can be useful, right? You can summarize meeting notes if were late to a meeting. You can summarize your emails. It can even create PowerPoint presentations. Powerful stuff, right? Just with some simple prompts and commands. So very, very interesting here. And then we see here, survey findings suggest that organizations are using AI in more business functions now than in previous years. And we see one or more functions, 72%, right? Two or more functions, 50%. So we know this is where it's trending, right? Upwards, right? Five or more functions, 8%, right? All these things are going to continue to increase. And as they increase, their usage of generative AI is going to start replacing jobs if it hasn't already. And actually, I'm quite sure that it has replaced many jobs, right? Okay. So this is the Aspen Institute. And again, there's a lot of think tanks out there that the elite use that, you can get a head start on what they're thinking and how things are going to be rolled out. Now, this article is on employment and jobs, AI and the future workers, right? By Don Howard. And let's see here. Some things I want to point out. It says, it's unavoidable and could be exponential, but it cannot be at the expense of workers already facing widening inequity in their power and pay, right? Talking about the adoption of AI. Wages for the lowest earners have grown since the pandemic. It's a good sign, but are still far short of creating financial stability for workers and their families, right? Because we've seen the tremendous amount of inflation that has occurred, right? The Federal Reserve's Economic Well-Being of U.S. Households report found that in 2023, 1 in 6 Americans could not afford to pay all their bills, and 1 in 3 could not cover an unexpected expense of $400 or more. And this, when you think about, and this is why this video is targeting, or the target audience are Israelites, right? Because Israelites are suffering the curses of Deuteronomy 28, right? Which will find Israelites oppressed, right? And at the bottom of the barrel, or at the ladder, or the pyramid, if you will, in countries throughout the four corners of the earth, right? So this is why this is important. So these hardships are not shared equally. Workers paid low wages are disproportionately women, people of color, those are Israelites, and specifically women of color, right? So for sisters out here who were caught on to the feminist movement that was started by Gentiles, right, to ultimately separate Israelite men from Israelite women, right? And, our sisters who court that train of thought that they don't need their men and they can be independent women, right? We're going to see that this is going to impact you probably more than any other demographic, right? We'll get to the numbers. Reflecting long-standing gender and racial inequities that undermine the promise of the American dream. Nationwide is basically a coin flip as to whether you'll do better than your parents, said Raj Chetty, a senior fellow at the Stanford Institute for Economic Policy Research, about his 2016 research. Okay, so very, very interesting, right? So now, of course, they're going to initially propose like a skilling of the workforce, right? This was what happened in the Industrial Revolution, and we can speak of other revolutions as well, that they would say, hey, it's no worry, with this new technology that's coming on board, all you got to do is get new skills and you'll be okay, right? Check this out. Training workers for the jobs of the future has been a conversation for decades, but the public and private sectors have a poor track record on this, right? So they don't necessarily say these things, but they really have a poor record of training people to get up to speed, right? Historically. Too often, workforce training fails to align or keep pace with the changing needs of employers, and fails to understand or meet the needs of low income adults, right? Mostly Israel, I would say, well, not by a number perspective, but maybe by percentage, who need to earn a family supporting wage. Unless things change, talk of reskilling workers displaced by AI will be just that, right? So it'll just be talk, right? We know that our people are going to be last in line when it comes to being able to capitalize on these sorts of things. So this is what the think tank is proposing, right? So we must get serious and collaborative about the education, training, and reskilling of incumbent and prospective workers, right? So they say. But again, we understand that this more than likely will not occur, right? We are heading into prophecy full scale. And, the elders talk about this. So you can always tune in to A Gathering 144, the main YouTube channel, where the elders go in on this, as well as Elder Ramar, which can be found at GOCC Southwest, all right, who comes on every Friday. And the elders on A Gathering 144, there's a plethora of content. They come on every Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. All right, so let's go back to some articles here. We got a video.
If you're getting nervous about the rise,
we're going to start at the 135 mark here. About 135. Okay.
the new features for the first time. Among the jobs expected to be most affected by generative AI.
So jobs most affected by generative AI, right? So we have telemarketers, tertiary educators, social professionals, policy analysts, judges, right? Counselors. Now this is, we say impacted, right? So we'll get a little better understanding of what they mean by this. And again, you may find different lists by other people, right? So this is not all inclusive, all right? So let's keep going.
I include telemarketers, teachers, interpreters, policy analysts, even judges and counsellors. Research by Statista has found although artificial intelligence could lead to the creation of 69 million new jobs worldwide, it could also result in the loss of 83 million existing jobs.
So it's going to gain 69 million new jobs, allegedly, right? But then it's going to lose 83 million jobs, right? So again, how many of our people are going to be reskilled to be able to take on this, what they're proposing here, or not proposing, but what they're saying, right? Now, we know eventually it's highly debatable, these 69 million new jobs, right? When Elon Musk is telling you straight out that AI is going to replace all jobs. Okay, so these numbers, do with it as you wish, right? But let's keep going.
Alex Jenkins is the director of the WA Data Science Innovation Hub. He says workers should become proficient at using the technology as it becomes more widespread.
I think in the first instance, people should probably not be worried about losing their job to an AI, but be worried about losing their job to someone who can use AI tools. So I think in the short term, we won't just see people flat out losing their jobs, but we will see this technology coming into the workplace, and it will change the way many roles work. So I would encourage people to make sure that they stay up to date with what's happening in the field and try to use the tools as much as they can, because I think that those, you're much more likely to be replaced by someone who can use the tools.
Okay.
So that's possibly is a play, right? Like we see AI now being rolled out in our companies, at our job, in our workplace, right? And those who can leverage AI, it could be a play there that you could sustain a little bit longer. But the point is, we need to prepare now, right, in order to pivot to something else, right? And that may be leaving before we're put out, right? Whatever the case may be. But we can't get sucked into that idea that, as long as I'm able to use the AI, I'm going to be safe, right? Because more than likely that is not going to be the case, right? In the long term. In the short term, yes, there's a play for that, and I would agree with this gentleman here. But again, we're talking short term, and the times are changing rapidly, right? So we need to be prepared for the pivot. All right, let's keep going.
So is this fear that we're seeing, which is very real, the paranoia that comes with every big disruption and change to work arrangements?
Look, I think that this change with AI is as big as the change that we saw in the workplace when computers and the internet were introduced. If you think of a graphic designer, that's a great example. So back in the 1980s, that was a job that was largely done by hand. But with the introduction of Adobe's tools and digital tools, the nature of the work changed, but the job didn't go away. We still needed creative people. And you'll see that these tools, whilst they're very simple to use in some cases, they can get very complex. And I've just myself been looking into this, and you see how productive some of the graphic designers can become with the technology. So I do think it will stand to make people more productive. Absolutely, there will be jobs that go away, but overall, I think it's a positive picture for us.
Okay, so which...
Right, so he's saying here, okay, well, it's going to make people more productive. There's an argument for that, right? You can read more email. You can summarize meeting notes. You can even create presentations when you don't have the time to do. But I would argue that that time that it gives us, that we're saving by using generative AI, we need to be working on trying to pivot to something else, right? So let's keep going.
are the jobs then, Alex, which could be enhanced by AI, freeing people up from perhaps the more mundane elements of a job?
Well, I think it's almost easier to ask the opposite question. What are the jobs that are safe? And if you have a job that involves interacting a lot with people or is very hands-on with the physical world, then AI isn't really coming for that space in the...
So we see jobs that are more hands-on, right? More personal in nature, working with your hands. These jobs are more safe. So this should give us a clue on, what areas we can pivot into, right?
In the short or the medium term. However, if you work in front of a computer and you have a very sort of knowledge-based job,
right, all the jobs that we went to college for and got into all this student loan debt, right? Sitting behind a desk at someone's downtown building, those jobs are going to be the ones the most at risk. Isn't that something, right?
particularly in a niche domain, like a highly skilled domain, I think there's going to be dramatic changes. So personally, I think that medicine and healthcare stand to be disrupted in a very positive way into the future. We can make health researchers more productive. We can make doctors more productive. We can free them up from admin work. And also education is an incredible use case for AI.
So teachers, right, need to be investigating where, your jobs currently, how they are currently using AI, what's on the horizon, right? Because it's going to dramatically impact your job and career field, right? Let's keep going.
One of the biggest things that I hope happens with AI is that we take the opportunity to use AI tutors to really focus on individual students' needs and push people forward at their own pace and allow them to really reach their potential from an educational perspective.
So he's saying, so I know tutoring, right? A lot of retired teachers usually go into tutoring to supplement income and things of that nature. Now it's saying, well, okay, why not have generative AI do the tutoring? Okay, so now those are jobs that are being replaced. And consider also that we're living in a time when the cost of living has significantly increased. A lot of people cannot afford to even, live how they were prior to the pandemic, right? So things are higher, and now people are losing opportunity for income that they always had in the past, right?
Now, that won't see the end of teachers at all. It will allow teachers to focus on the things that they are great at. I had some amazing teachers growing
Allegedly.
up, and they certainly guided my career, and I think that that won't change.
All right, so now let's go into another article here. It's an infographic on the World Economic Forum website. Now, this was actually done, I believe, a few years ago, but it's telling us, if we just click on here, it says the job landscape. By 2025, new jobs will emerge and others will be displaced by a shift in the division of labor between humans and machines, affecting 97 million jobs. So now they're trying to say growing demand will be these particular jobs, right? Data analysts, scientists, AI and machine learning specialists. Okay. Now we also heard that you're basically going to be working for a government job eventually with these skills, but nonetheless, this is the growing job demand. Big data specialists, digital marketing, process automation specialists. It kind of goes on and on. And then we see here Internet of Things, right? And then decreasing job demand. Data entry clerks, administrative and executive secretaries, right? So if you are an administrative assistant, right, in a company, you have to consider the fact that you will have decreasing job demand, all right? Accounting. So we got, brothers and sisters going all out for those accounting degrees right now, right? It could be short-lived because, and it's not an easy task to get an accounting degree. You got to study for that CPA. All that is great, right? But that is a career field that will be shrinking, right? So now you got to consider all the time and effort and money that you put into getting those accounting degrees and sacrificing to get that career as an accountant. Now it's going to be a decreasing job demand due to AI because they can train generative AI to replace you. Let's see, accountants and auditors, right? Assembly and factory workers, right? Business services and administration managers, right? So consider this here, right? Client information and customer service workers, all right? Generative and operation managers, mechanics even, wow, and machinery repairs, material recording and stock keeping clerks, right? So these jobs will have a decreasing demand over the next few years as generative AI fully comes on board, right? So these are things, if you find yourself in these career fields, which many of us are, we have to consider, how are we going to pivot to something else, right? All right, so let's keep going. This here was the Pew Research Center. And this article was titled, "Which U.S. workers are more exposed to AI on their jobs?" About a fifth of all workers have high exposure jobs. Women, Asian, college educated, and higher paid workers are more exposed, right? So again, we paid all this money to go away to school, right, and accumulate student loan debt as much as a house, right? And then only to have those career fields be, reduced significantly due to computers, right? And this was part of the trade-off when America transitioned to a service economy, right? And the elders go into this ad nauseum in the academy and on the main YouTube channel, right? That was done with Bill Clinton in the early 90s when he passed the NAFTA agreement. All right, so let's check out some charts here. Let's see. So what shares of workers are most exposed to artificial intelligence in their jobs? So let's check this out. All workers currently today, well, this is as of 2023, 19% are exposed last year, right? But we know today this is significantly higher. 17%, 21% women, all right? Whites, or as the Bible calls, the Edomites, 20%. Blacks, 15%. Hispanic, 13%. Right? Asian, 24%. American Indian, or the tribe of Gad. Right? And I'm going to say blacks, tribe of Judah. Hispanic would be your northern kingdom tribes. And then other, 18%. Right? And then check this out. This is in terms of the education, in terms of what's going to be most impacted. Less than a high school diploma, 3%, right? Because they are more than likely working more base level jobs, working with their hands, so on and so forth. And AI is not targeting those jobs, right? High school graduates, 12%. That's it, right? Some college, 19%. But check this out. If you have a bachelor's degree or more, right, 27% of those with college degrees are going to be impacted by AI today, right? Tomorrow, we know that this is going to significantly increase. So, again, the urgency and the time is now to start considering that the gifts that you have and that the Most High has blessed you with, and how to leverage those gifts, right, to pivot to other ways to work to earn a living. Okay? All right, so we're almost done here. A few more articles and we're going to wrap it up. This is an article, 65 Jobs with the Lowest Risk of Automation by Artificial Intelligence and Robots, right? So the robots, let's see. The following 65 occupations were all determined to have an automation risk probability of 0%. Interesting. Based on abilities, knowledge, skills, and activities required in order to do the job. With the same low risk of automation, they are ranked in order of their projected growth by 2031 to see which occupations will continue to thrive through the age of robots and artificial intelligence. So let's check it out. Nurse practitioners, right? Now, again, this, I wouldn't believe this 100%, okay? We know that nurses are going to be significantly impacted, right? But there's some careers on here that we may have some truth to it, to the extent that they may sustain longer, right? Choreographers, right? So that would be interesting if Elon Musk creates robots that would teach us how to dance. That would be insane, but I would not put anything past him, right? Physician assistants, mental health counselors, right? They're saying it's relatively safe. Coaches and scouts, right? I can see that, right? A football coach or a scout to scout out talent, right? Things are going to have to pass the eye test. So athletic trainers, physical therapists. So some of these jobs we may want to even consider as maybe a side gig or something at that point now. So then in the event that we, those who paid the cost to go to college and get these high level white collar jobs and eventually be put out, that we can pivot to other things, right? Occupational therapists, I can get it, I can make sense. Marriage and family therapists, all right? Music therapists. So, yeah, this list is pretty interesting, right? Fitness and wellness coordinators, social work. So it would seem things that really require, social interaction skills, right? Like people, they want to interact with humans with, right? And you're going to have humans know how to be empathetic and sympathetic and, things of that nature. So it'll be hard for generative AI to replace those things. Nurse midwives. This is something here. My wife is actually studying to be a midwife now, right? So it's a very wise decision on her part, and in supporting the church in that moving forward. A lot of interesting stuff here. Security managers, civil engineers. I'm kind of surprised by that. Um, let's see. Dentists. Okay, I'm actually seeing robots. No, I can see that. Dentists. That kind of interesting. Firefighters. There's a job that could be protected, right? Um, Dermatologists, right? So this list, I would encourage everybody who's come across this video, look at this list, right? Um, and see where you stand on that. Maybe your career is on here, and you may not have much to worry about right now, right? But it would still be helpful for you to be able to have other side gigs, right? Because guess what? If everyone is out of a job, and no one has the ability to pay for these things, or a very limited few, right? You're going to have a number of different things that people can call you on to be able to do, right? And all this is for a time until, ultimately we got to do the Babylon bounce. And those who are in the church or with the church and follow the church, you know exactly what I'm talking about. All right, so let's keep going here. So what jobs are most at risk at AI? All right, so we talked about those that are probably the safest. All right, and the video that we looked at kind of went into this, and so we kind of understand that customer service representative is already there. Retail salespeople. I would imagine not all salespeople, but that's interesting. Proofreaders and translators. Yeah, I mean, you got Google Translate, you got all these things. That is definitely something that I can see being replaced. Financial analysts, right? This is near and dear to me because this is what I do, right? I'm a finance man. So this is something that a lot of what I can do or do for a living now can be replaced, right? So these are things that, understanding that it's time to get ahead of the game and know how to pivot into something else, right? All right, we're going to continue here. Now, this is an article or a research paper by Goldman Sachs, the investment bank. And again, a lot of these things, they put it out here that they're discussing these things. So, we look into this type of research because it helps us give a leg up on where things are trending in real time, right? So just a couple charts I wanted to pull out here. I'll get to it really quickly here. Here we go. And this is something that I found to be pretty interesting. I'll blow this up a little bit. So, Exhibit 5, 1/4 of current work tasks could be automated by AI in the US and Europe, right? And so this here, it tells us like the percent of different tasks, right? Legal tasks, 44% of legal tasks can be automated by AI. So you got to consider these things if you are, a paralegal, a thing work in a law office, right? What you do, can it be replaced? Also, even lawyers, right? If you want to produce a record contract, you can go to AI and say, hey, type me a record contract, and it'll spit you out one in 2 seconds, right? So what do you need a lawyer for? So these are things that we have to consider. Architecture and engineering, 37% tasks. Wow. Business and financial operations, 35%. For those in the career of corporate finance or any type of finance, 35%, right? Community and social work, right? Management, right? So looking at this to give us some insight into, where we fall on this spectrum. Right. This I find farming, fishing, and forestry, 28% of those tasks can be replaced. That's shocking. Right. Very, very shocking. But again, we got to know Israel. We have to be as that steward was that we found in the book of Luke chapter 16. We have to be wise. We have to know what's coming down the pike, and then act wisely in this day and time, right? Isaiah chapter 33 verse 6 tells us that wisdom and knowledge will be the stability of our time. All right. Education and instruction and library, 27% of those tasks can be replaced. All industries, 25%. Interesting. Right? Food preparation and serving relating, 12%. So now what we can see, as you see the number decreasing, right? That means you're less and less at risk of what you do is less and less at risk of getting replaced. And this will also give us some insight on some areas that maybe we need to pivot into. Now, I would argue like transportation and material moving. Okay. When I think transportation, I think of the trucking industry, and we know they're already piloting automated run trucks, right? So, that is dramatically going to impact the trucking industry and those who are in that career of trucking. We see here construction even 6%. So again, that's a low percentage. So it's relatively safe in the short term, I would say, in terms of being replaced, right? And then this here goes into the industry employment exposed by AI in the Euro area. And so let's see here, clerical support workers, 45% in Europe. And I would argue anywhere, right? But that this is focused on Europe, but I would say it translates to the United States as well. Technicians and associate professionals, 31%. Managers, 29%. Let's see, share of industry. Elementary occupations, and as we go down the list, we see those are less and less at risk. So very interesting to see where this is headed. And, as Israel, we have to stay on top of these things in order to stay afloat, right? So I'm going to show a video by a gentleman. He'll introduce himself. He offers some pretty good content. I'll shift here.
What's going on is Anthony.
So this gentleman here is a entrepreneur. He's also a business consultant as well, and he has a lot of work experience in terms of consulting companies on streamlining and becoming more efficient and things of those natures, right? And he has a very solid take on the direction of things, and I want you guys to listen up.
From AnonDaniels.com. I appreciate you guys for continuing to rock with me. I don't know if it's me or if that's just what's happening in society right now prior to Trump taking office, but it seemed like it's a lot of people. And when I say a lot, I'm starting to be flooded with emails of people sending me videos of people either being laid off or complaining about having to go back to work. And so
right, so those who are working at home, right? He has some very interesting messages for those, right? Let's listen.
I want to speak to that really quickly because I was talking to Quentin yesterday, and I'll expound on this tomorrow because I got a lot of things that I need to get off my chest, but I like to keep it a little bit singular. I was talking to Quentin, and he was saying that a lot of people need to actually consider moving to a smaller city, especially when it comes to opportunity and reducing your costs. But that's
right. He's saying move to a smaller city. Now, I want to put this out first, right? By no means am I saying that everyone needs to pack their bags and move to a smaller city, right? But let's understand what he means by that. And we know eventually, as Christ told us, we're going to, when we're persecuted in one city, flee into the next. So that's going to happen when we're persecuted, right? But there also is some wisdom to be found here in terms of what he's going to bring out about these smaller cities, right?
completely different conversation. There are a lot of people that are being laid off, and at the same time, there's a second segment of people that are stuck in their bubble, and they don't understand that they have it incredibly good. If you are a person that is working from home, and that is like the sentiment of your company, they are going to remain keeping everybody working from home. That is what is being communicated over to the people where, that's how you came into the business and that's how you rolling. Be very, very thankful. Be very appreciative, because most people do not have that privilege. Do not feel as though that is owed to you. Do not believe that you are special. You are not special. You are lucky. You are blessed. Now,
And I gotta admit here, when he said that, I thought about myself, because when my company said, okay, you gotta start coming back to work 3 days a week, I was upset. I'm like, man, I'm comfortable at home. I like this. I'm saving on gas, on lunch and food and all these things. I don't want to go into work, right? And it definitely it affected me in terms of how I operated. But now, I snapped out of that, and I'm definitely more appreciative now. But, let's listen up to what he has to say.
obviously, we can make a case and say that some people earned the position that they in, and that the role that they're in, it allows for them to be able to do so because they have a special, unique skill set that allows for them to be able to choose to work from home and stuff like that. That's cool. I'm not knocking you. You are the exception, but you are not the rule. For the rest of y'all that was blessed enough to be able to work from home over the last 4 years or 5 years or however long, you was a part of the pandemic and stuff like that, and you thought that was never going to happen again, I told you, I warned you, and I knew that it was going to be a wake-up call and a reality check very, very soon for y'all. Well, why am I saying this? Because most of y'all jobs, you were going into the office every single day anyway. Mm-hmm. And we are getting to the point, especially with people that don't have a special skill set, especially if you are not, uniquely trained or don't have a degree and then experience in a STEM-related field or specializing in something that makes you, unique to the workforce, that there's a lack of in it as far as professionals, and you are blessed, or you can write your own ticket, or you make a lot of money and you can choose to work from home. You made smart decisions. That is a blessing for you. For those of y'all that have not kept up with your skill set, you got the degree and then you remain complacent or content in the role that you're in, you need to update your skill set, because along with
Basically, don't get too comfortable, right? You got that corporate job you always wanted, right? You got your degrees on your desk and all those things, right? But don't get comfortable, because we know, as we saw in the reports, AI is coming for you, right? Let's keep going.
you not wanting to go back into the office. You got AI that's playing a huge role in things. I use AI for a lot of stuff work related in order to streamline processes. And whereas I would have had to hire for certain things, I don't have to hire, and I can remain paying my employees, a really, really great wage, because I don't have to outsource a lot of things to a lot of people and then go through a lot of turnover. So I have a different type of business philosophy that allows for me to be able to thrive in certain environments, but everybody is not built like that. If you work in a call center, and I'm not dissing anybody, I'm not dissing any job in particular, but if you work in a call center, for example, if you don't realize that at some point you're going to be replaced, and that companies are figuring out every single day how to streamline processes, how to, make things easier, how to do problems. Like, I'll give you an example, because a lot of people don't understand how this process works. So, for example, you could be in a situation where you work at a call center, right? Or you take calls or customer service and all of that, right? And you could say, well, I'm not going to be replaced because we always have a lot of volume. Well, what I do, for example, as a UXer, and I don't just UX as far as screens, I am in I was in an upper management position, and I'm choosing to not have to go back into the job and move over into a different department. We sold the department, so I'm taking a severance, but I own a lot of businesses, and I decided that I wanted to focus on my businesses more, right? But one of the things that I do, and one of the things that make me unique, is that I figure out ways to make things flow even easier or more efficient or whatever, right? So, for example, I may be designing a screen that allows for people to be able to self-service for customer service instead of having to call into the call center, right? Well, my job is to make it easier, lower the call center, have a better, output as far as customer service and people being happy with the service, while at the same time making things more efficient. So one of the things I'll do is I'll take a multi-level approach. I'll both redesign the contact us screen for a major bank that I work for. And so I'll go through a process. Let's say, for example, whereas it used to just say, open Monday through Friday, here's a call center number, whatever, you can contact us, so on and so forth. I'll go in and I'll redesign it. I'll rethink the whole process and say, all right, well, you know what? The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make the call center more competitive by having gamification, meaning that we're going to put screens on there to see exactly how long it takes each agent to filter through a call. Then we're going to go through Salesforce and we're going to make it easier for you to be able to find what you're looking for so you can service the customer more effectively. Also, what we're going to do is we're going to go through the contact us screen and the steps to make it a little bit more difficult for the user to get in touch with you. But before they do that, they'll have to be able to consider self-servicing. So we'll give them some FAQs.
And for the record, I can't stand that, right? When I call into, let's say, a telephone company or a cable company, I can't stand talking to AI. Like, I've always hated that automated stuff, and they make it so hard for you to get an actual person. By the time you get to that person, you're mad, you upset, and you darn near yelling at them because you had to go through so many steps just to get to them, right? But anyway, I digress. Let's keep going.
Allow AI to be able to make it easier for them to search what they're looking for because maybe they don't want to hold online. What we'll do is we'll allow for them, if they're on a mobile device or if they're on their laptop, we'll allow for them to place themselves in queue for a callback instead of being waiting on hold. And so all of this during that time, they'll also have the ability to be able to find what they're looking for before they ever talk to an agent. And so we're solving for problems. People like me, we go in and we solve for problems before the customer even reach an agent. And sometimes they just have a problem that they have to reach an agent for, and they could do that, right? Most times we'll look at the data and I'll say, well, a lot of people just need a password reset or they need to do this. And so we'll go through and we'll solve for that. And so that is one of the things that make me unique is that I go through and I give my team direction based off of how I can make the things easier for them to do. It's not just about easier on the application. It's not just easier navigating the screen. It's not just easier as far as how it is that you're being able to check your balance. It's solving for making sure that we want that the business run more efficiently when it comes to self-servicing. Do we need as many agents, right? Looking at the amount of phone calls that come in on each day and then staffing it more effectively based off of that. Using software, AI in order to make things easier for certain things, right? So when I go through and I'm figuring it out, in a sense, not directly, but indirectly, I'm trying to figure out how to not need you. So if you are a person, and I'm giving you the inside scoop, so if you are the type of person that feel as though you're just automatically going to be secure because you've been there for a long time or you work from home and all of that, I'm telling you that traditionally, all throughout history, you've always had to keep up with your skill set. You've always had to make adjustments. You've always had to, update and stay in school or whatever, because I am going to figure out, and people like me exist, and they pay us a lot of money, and I'm being recruited right now since I've announced that I'm retiring from mid-sized to large-sized bank in this field. If you don't think that I'm getting phone calls right now from people that's saying, hey, listen, we want you to come in, look at what we're doing or whatever, and that's one of the beauties of marketing. That's one of the beauties of building out a platform that allows for you to also be able to market yourself more effectively because, I possess a unique skill set. I've worked in leadership and I've directed teams and I solve for problems, and I also do it within my own businesses. And that allows for me to generate a lot of revenue while at the same time you sitting there waiting on somebody. And it's nothing wrong with having a job, but you need to make sure that A, you're appreciative, B, that you're proactive, and C, you're not waiting on somebody to lay you off, because there's always going to be times where there's growth. There's going to be times where it's cyclical. You're not going to be able to protest yourself to $50 an hour just because you think that you deserve it. What value add do you have inside of the business or the corporation that you work for or the industry that you're a part of, right? Are you willing to move? Do you think that you're just going to be sitting in your living room, waking up? And it's a lot of people, I'm going to have a whole nother conversation about this. It's a lot of people that's not built to work from home. And it's also a lot of people that's not built to have their own business. Two different, completely different conversations. But what I'm telling you is that based off of what I'm hearing in the industry and my friends and the executives and certain business partners, what they're telling me is that it's a sentiment happening, and it's going to be a lot of money and opportunity for people that solve for problems, and it's going to be a bloodbath for people that think that they're safe. If you're not willing to go back into the office, if you think that you're safe, and you may be, but I'm telling you, don't wait for something to happen to you. Be proactive and put yourself in a position to be successful. I love you. I appreciate you. I got business to take care of. I'm going to holler at y'all later, all right? Peace.
All right, family. So that was powerful what he was saying. Like, listen, he's getting phone calls now. People in the industry, they're calling on people like him, consultants, to come in and streamline their businesses, make it more efficient, use generative AI. So this is happening now. This is happening now. So we're going to work, or even that's why I do like the fact that he said appreciative, right? Because some of us going to work and we angry, we mad, right? And or not really appreciating the opportunity that the Most High has given us, and not realize, and also probably not realizing that we're going to be the first ones on the chopping block, right? And so we have to be mindful of these things, use wisdom. This is happening in real time, family. All right, so that I really like that brother's take. You can check out his work, Anon Daniels. He covers a lot of social content and things of that nature, and business stuff. All right, we got one more article, then we're going to wrap it up. I thought the article was interesting, right? It says, so why so many U.S. Koreans run dry cleaners while Arabs are grocers, right? And I'm going to show you why I looked at this, right? Because we'll see, right? So it said, in the United States, Koreans are 34 times more likely than other immigrant groups to run dry cleaners, while I'm not going to try to pronounce this. Speaking Indians are 108 times more likely to manage motels. Like, this is so. These other nations have come in here, and they are targeting specific areas, industries, or jobs, and they're dominating them, right? So we'll keep going here. Economists William Kerr of Harvard Business School and Martin Mandroff of the Swedish Competition Authority studied the relationship between ethnicity, occupational choice, and entrepreneurship. They found that ethnic groups in the United States tend to concentrate in certain businesses, and that these small, socially isolated groups attain considerable financial success through this type of concentrated entrepreneurship, right? So and we've all seen it in our communities, right? These other nations, these Gentiles come into our communities and they target a certain area, right? Whether it's nail salons, Asians, or Palestinians and gas stations, or whatever the case may be, and they dominate that, and then they bring their family into it and their friends into it, and they're offering jobs and they're building up communities, right? Now, we know, of course, being of the children of Israel, we do have to contend with the curses that we are under due to our forefathers breaking the commandments. And I'll read this here. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 43 tells us, right? The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. So the strangers, the Gentiles, will come into our community, live in our zip codes and all those things, right? Or even commute into our communities, but they would get up very high. They would own the stores and the businesses and all these sorts of things, right? And the reason why I'm bringing this out is because it's going to come a time for us to, put together our skills, right? To leverage those in ways that these other nations have to sustain for a time. Interesting here, right? According to Curran Medroff, Yemenis are 75 times more likely to own grocery stores than other immigrants. Interesting. While Greeks tend to concentrate in the restaurant sector. And Middle Eastern immigrants are more likely to own grocery and liquor stores. Very interesting, right? So we see this in our communities, in and about, right? The researchers say people decide what industry to enter based on their interactions. The tendency to cluster around certain industries often results because market interactions, such as with corporate America or in higher education, can prove more challenging for certain members of ethnic groups, right? So, in a lot of these other nations that we're talking about that are in our communities, they have the type of businesses that are going to sustain through artificial intelligence, that revolution, right? Consequently, they rely more on social interactions with friends, family, or people within their ethnic group to learn new skills and find jobs. So this is something that as we come together more as a nation, we're going to have to start leveraging each other, learning different skills that we possess as a body and within the body, and then going out and utilizing those skills and gifts to earn, right? This tendency to own their own businesses is more apparent among some groups. For example, 45% of adult Korean males are self-employed. That is ridiculously high, right? That's 3 times higher than the 15% self-employed rate of the general adult immigrant male population. So that's showing you that from that's something that's bred within their culture. That's probably taught at a very young age, right? To be independent, to be entrepreneurial, right? These are things that we have to start instilling in our youth, right? As business owners, these immigrant groups have to rely on their own judgment, and they tend to learn from each other, right? When socializing during family gathering and religious cultural function, entrepreneurs mentor each other and exchange industry knowledge and professional advice, right? So we come together on the Shabbat, we come together on the feast days, right? And, we have all the talent and the skills that we need within our body of Christ, right? Let's keep going. The more an entrepreneur socializes with other entrepreneurs, the more knowledge is exchanged. Social interaction and production are therefore complementary in the entrepreneurial sector, and entrepreneurial productivity increases with the number of friends and family members in that sector. So, this is why, like, the elders created the GOCC network, right, where entrepreneurs within the body can promote their services and that they can gain or get support from their body, right? From the body of Christ, the Gathering of Christ Church I speak of, right? And that really, to me, is like the beginning, right? We need to even take this a step further in support of one another, locally I speak of. So this is a very interesting article, but I think what I grasp from this is that we need to leverage, what these other nations have been leveraging against us for some time, right? And I have one last slide I want to show you guys. And this is just, I just started thinking about, like, what other nations, like these nations that we see on a daily basis, right? Specifically, like in New Jersey, right? East Indians, right? They just running Dunkin' Donuts, it seems, and 7-Elevens, right? Palestinians in gas stations. Asians hold down the beauty supply, nail salons. Koreans got the cleaners. Africans, right? Hair braiding, right? They got that down pack, right? The Mexicans with landscaping, right? So we see here that, this is why America was so, sought after by these other nations, because it is the land of opportunity, right? And there is still opportunity that still exists here. And we need to start identifying that and leveraging that, right? We need to start instilling in our youth a more entrepreneurial mindset. So as the days draw closer and AI removes all the jobs, that they'll be able to pivot into something that maybe was taught to them by their family or by their family in Christ, to be able to pivot into and support and take to the next level, and gaining the type of skills that are going to translate into very well on the entrepreneurial kick, if you will, right? So these are things, family, I wanted to bring this video out to share this with you all, to consider, right? Because now we're really living in a time of change. Things are changing at a rapid pace, right? Prophecy is being fulfilled on a daily basis. And we know that the more that AI comes on, eventually this is going to lead us to the mark of the beast control grid that's spoken of in the book of Revelation, chapter 13. So with that said, we know, eventually, and when that happens, it's going to be either you took the mark of the beast, which will be the RFID chip that will be implanted in your right hand or in your forehead, or if you don't take the chip, you will not be a full functioning member of society, right? We're going to have to be, as the scriptures tell us to be, pilgrims in the earth, fleeing from one city to the next until we get to the wilderness, family. All right, so we understand that this is coming, and it's best for us to prepare. And the best way that we can prepare, first and foremost, is getting right with the Most High. Right? And that is, being in order within your local congregation, contributing, doing the work that's going to contribute to the body. Because at the end of the day, as we are in a community and we're going to be, become pilgrims in the earth, it's going to be your work within that community that's going to help sustain us. And if you're not accustomed to being around the body, supporting the body, knowing how to operate and function within a body, you are going to be of little use. You're not going to gain that experience by being on the outside of this, right? So it's important for you to put your hands to the plow and start building with your brothers and sisters of like mind to be able to see this through to the end. And I'll leave it here with this scripture. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 14, verse 12, and it says this: here is the patience of the saints. The saints are the children of Israel, right? Who we know, according to prophecy in the book of Daniel, chapter 7, will be going through captivity before it is ultimately freed by Christ. The captivity that we are in now, of course, is the Roman captivity, the fourth beast, right? Here are they that keep the commandments of the Most High and the faith of Yeshua, who the world calls Jesus Christ, right? So these are the things that we need to, first and foremost, to be right spiritually as we see these things change. And then by being right spiritually, we'll be able to tap in and receive guidance from the Holy Spirit and guidance from the elders in the body of Christ that you labor in, to be able to navigate us to safer pastors and through safety as AI comes on full-fledged. So family, I will leave you with this. I thank you for tuning in. I pray that you received something from this lesson. If you haven't already, join in on the Hebrew Bible Academy. You can check that out at historytimes.org to find more information on in-depth topics in regards to this. And also the Sabbath classes that you can find on A Gathering 144 on YouTube, right? Every Saturday, the Sabbath, tune in and be edified. Also, the weekly broadcast on Wednesday by the elders and on Friday. Get edified, be uplifted, understand what's going on, because again, wisdom and knowledge will be the stability of our time, family. So thank you for joining. Bless you and shalom.